Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I like the enthusiastic welcome. And thank you. All right. See, you already know that you're in for something different. I want to thank Mr. Eddie for consenting to being here this evening. It's good to be with you. And thanks to Appeal for the recommendation to be this evening. An interesting question. I love the question. And I love the energy in the room. The energy in the room is really good. And I believe that we're going to have a wonderful time and there'll be some enthusiasm and excitement about where the information and the journey could lead. And I also hope that we have some participation, because since you're a Christian club at the university, then regardless of where you are right now on your journey with the Lord, I think that you can be engaging and you can be helpful. So I'd ask you probably to just use your phones, since most of you probably don't have a physical Bible. I'll ask you to use your phones to help me with some scriptures as I go along. Is that okay? Yes? All right. So since we're a Christian club, let's open in prayer. How about that? Father, in the name of Jesus, I pray that you bless every person here this evening with insight and revelation and enthusiasm, that when we leave this place this evening, that we'll have so much to think about, and our confidence will increase, our awareness, our understanding, our grasp of truth will all increase, that our love for you will increase, and our love for humanity, for the world, for each other will increase, so that we can transform the world through the love that we give to the world. And not the love that is just good, nice feelings, but the love that is also accountability and justice and correction and honor, and sometimes even punishment. Father, we pray that you help us to understand you and understand ourselves, and to have some good frame of reference as we define the things that define us and the things we try to make sense of. So let your Holy Spirit bless us this evening with the grace and wisdom we need, that you will be honored above everything else. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So the big question is the relevance of the church to society today. Or is the church relevant to society today? Let's begin by, and I'm going to be as mindful of my time as possible. But let's begin with a very important point. That whatever you are discussing, you must always define what you are discussing. It's important to have a definition. Yes? It's important to have a definition of whatever you are dealing with. So, if we say the church, what exactly are we talking about when we say the church? If we say we are asking a question of whether the church is relevant, what do we mean when we ask if the church is relevant? So, what are the questions in your question? What do you mean? When you ask, is the church relevant to today? Are you asking, does the church have something to say to young people today and to society today that makes sense to them and can help them? Or are you asking, well, is the church as something that has influence over people's lives and over the nation, and tells people how to live and how to structure their lives and so on? Is that still needed? Is it still important? See, so you have to ask yourself the question, when I ask, is the church relevant, what exactly am I talking about? And when I ask the question about the church, what exactly is in my head? am I talking about the place that I go to for worship on whether Saturday, Sunday, whatever day of the week? Or am I talking about a system that was set up and has people running it? Very important questions. Because sometimes you're going to find that you're having an argument with somebody and you have two very different positions on the issue you're arguing about. And you're at each other. You're really at each other, and you get emotional, and you start, sometimes if you're not careful, you start getting unkind to each other, and you start using hurtful words or expressions, or you start, as the Belizean would say, you start catching feelings, and then you realize, after you get to a certain point, you realize that when you really analyze what you were arguing about, you are not really arguing about the exact same thing. It looks like you're arguing about the same thing, but it's not exactly the same thing. So one person is talking about a tree, and he's arguing about the tree and what a tree is and how important the tree is. And the other person is arguing about the forest. Say, no, but we can't see it that way because it's not important. And then you realize, okay, two different perspectives because it's two different angles you're coming at it from. So when we think of the word church, and I'm kind of doing this as a little bit of a lecture and then open up for questions, just as I was speaking on. Because my style generally my preferred style would be to just ask you the questions, get some feedback, and then respond to your feedback. But just in the interest of time and to sort of run it along quickly, I'll just give you some things to think about, and then we could deal with some questions after. So first, let me say on the question of church that when you think the word church was not always a religious word. The word church didn't always begin as a word that when it comes up, you think God, and you think prayer, and you think healing, and all these other things that you think of when you think church. Church actually, interestingly, was originally a society word, was a civic word, and was a word that actually meant a ruling council or decision-making body. So what you had many years ago, before the Bible was written and put together, in the early years when there were just some people called disciples of Christ. That's all they were. They were not called Christians, and there was no such thing as church. They were just called Jesus followers, Jesus disciples. And at some point, as they became closer together and were working closely together, then somebody called them, as if it's a nickname, so they were called Christians. So Christians wasn't always a nice fancy word that defined well-behaved people. It was a word that was used in a kind of pejorative way. Oh, these Christians. In other words, these what? Followers of Christ. Hence Christians, Christians. But the word church existed before Christians. So what you had was, there was a council that would make decisions, sort of like how you have the government and then you have the House of Representatives and that sort of thing. You had a body that was responsible for making decisions on how society functions. And then when they make their decisions, you had another body outside of that that had to ratify their decisions. That was the church. So you had the government or the ruling person, the inner body that made the decisions, and then you had the outer body that said yes or no to the decisions made. So the idea of the church was that it was an organized system to run the society. So later on, Christians adopted the word church. Now you could kind of see where this is going, right? The word church was adopted because they had this concept that if we could organize ourselves and be a group that influences the decisions of society, then we could influence the decisions of society for the sake of Christ, for this teacher that we were following. So the church became, well, in a sense you could say the church always was. We have So, you're good, right? The church became, let me use your help. Come. The church was really originally, and remember we say the word church was always a religious word, but it became that. And as the church took form and developed, then those who formed the church, were the leaders of the church, were organizing themselves, recognized that all along, in God's mind, in God's intention, that there was a divine strategy. So God had a divine strategy. So if you believe, first of all, if you believe there is a God and that God created the universe and God set everything in motion, then you kind of have a head start. And with that head start, you know that if you create something, you have to have a purpose for it. You have a design for it. You have some purpose that it must accomplish. So you can say in God's mind, the church was a strategy. It was a divine strategy. It was a strategy from the creator of the universe. And a strategy is, in a sense, you could say a strategy is a policy or a plan to achieve something. But you could also say that a strategy is basically in your head. Even if you write it down, it's just some ideas on paper. You know, that kind of sounds like a reasonable definition. A strategy, yes, is an idea, it's a policy, it's something you have in your mind for achieving a goal. Yes or no? Talk to me, yes? All right. So there was a strategy. And then, after the strategy, yes, you see? What you all love, yeah. After the strategy, you see the two of them slap hands, just kind of, just naturally, organically. So there was a strategy, but then there was also a system. Now, do you think that by himself, he's a system? No. No? How many persons say no? Most of you say no? All of you? Most of you? Yes? How many of you say yes, he is a system? That he by himself is a system? Only you? Yes, you? Yes or no? You're not sure, are you sure? Is he a system or is he not a system?
I could talk.
Yeah? Well, I'm asking you. Is your hand up or your hand not up? Are you saying yes or no? No, he's not a system. No. Does anybody say he's a system? Anybody? All right, how about this? Think of him, right? And just look at his eyes alone. Do you think that his eyes need, that the lens in his eyes need to function a certain way? and that they have to connect with his with the retina somewhere at the back? That has to connect with his brain? That has to connect with the veins running through his neck? That has to connect with his liver and his kidney, because they have to clean up the system. As everything would go blank, he would go blind and he would die. Yes? Is that making sense to you now? Yes. So is he a system? He's a whole system by himself. The way the eyes function, the coordination, the fingers, that the brain has to talk to the limbs, so the limbs move. You see? You should have stuck with your answer. I kind of know you saw it, but everybody else said no, so you just decided to say no too. But I think you saw it. So he's a system all by himself. As a matter of fact, science, those of you into science, I don't know if you've come across this yet, but science actually says that when he walks in this room, he actually changes the temperature of the room. You see, you're not laughing, but just bear in mind, whatever I say of him is true of all of us, right? Okay? So he's only a helpful example. He's helpful to me in the illustration. But in science, he actually, in fact, one person I came across, the first time I heard it, really got my attention. They said that the amount of energy that he alone generates by himself as a person you can actually consider him a miniature sun, S-U-N. The amount of energy we generate and the amount of heat and power that we generate, we could actually be considered a small sun, S-U-N. So here alone is a whole system. So God said, you know what? I need a strategy in order for the world to function the way that I have in mind. So he's the strategy. But God said, I need to put a system in place. So a system is a connection of things. So here we are in a classroom. Fan is running. Fan is connected to something that you can't see above the ceiling, which is connected to something else, which is connected to something else, which eventually is connected to the pole outside on the road. But all you see is that the fan running. But there's a system. And then, first girl we're going to have.
Let's go there.
And the only girl in the midst, she happens to be the institution. So the church is a strategy, there's a plan for how things are supposed to work out. The strategy is put in the form of a system. So in the church, you have leaders and you have people move up in certain areas and they have titles and they function in different ways and so forth. And then all of that comes together to be a very solid part of society. That we say, just as we say, the court is an institution. We say the education system or the school is an institution. We also say the church is don't we say that? Because it is a part of society that teaches and passes on certain customs and ideas and rules and functions in a way with other systems in order for society to work effectively. So when they join together, then we have something significant happening because the system shows you that there is a plan or a strategy. And when the system is functioning right, over time, there are some things that are not changed or even become unchangeable. There are some things you could predict. There are some impacts that you'll have on the society because there is a institution. The church becomes an institution. So in Belize, for example, and Belize is one of the few places, actually, one of the very few places where the House of Representatives has a seat for a pastor. So there's a seat in the House of the Assembly, in the Assembly of Belize, there is a seat for a minister of religion to represent the Christian church. Or to represent the church. So.
I have a question about that. Why is it only the Christian church or other churches represented?
I believe the person if the intention is that the person connects with other religion, but primarily that the person is a Christian. And the short answer, I think, the best answer I think you could get for that is that the founding, the earliest prime minister you had, George Price, was apparently a very devout Christian, and he wanted to have that Christian influence over the nation. So he made provision for there to be a seat. So the person, there's actually a senator who sits, I met him just last week. I knew him before, but I ran into him last week. There's a minister who is also a senator who is responsible for representing the church in the assembly. So when they all come together, there is some movements that take place. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, see, somebody got that. Y'all are never going to forget that. So there's a strategy, there is a system, and there's an institution. Now you understand why the church is so powerful and impacting in society generally. And behind the question that you have asked me to come to talk about today, behind that question, there are a number of questions. And questions, some of them I would assume, or I could deduce what the questions are. And one of the questions behind that question is, if the church is worth its purpose, or if the church is supposed to help the society, why do we have so many problems in the society? Why is crime so high all over the world? Why are some people going to church all their lives, poor and struggling, die poor? They seem to be oppressed all the time. They believe in God, but still they're just oppressed. And it looks like if they're not making any difference in the society. How come? That means the church don't make sense. That's really what's behind your question, you know. That's a big part of what is behind your question. And the answer to that is that unfortunately, the church is not functioning effectively as it is supposed to function. So if it is not functioning effectively, as young people, you are now asking the question, well, does it make sense? Do we need it? Why don't we get rid of this church thing? That's really what you're saying. If you either make sense or we get rid of it. And for you to make sense, you must be able to connect with us where we are. And I don't think connecting with you necessarily means, well, you must tell us we are doing a good job. No matter what nonsense we do, you must just pat us on the back and say, great job. I don't think that's what you really mean. I think deep within every one of you, there is this desire that says, where should I go? How should I do it? Who should I connect with? And how do I know that the way I am going and what I am doing is right and that it makes sense? These are the questions you're asking. In other words, you're asking the question of meaning and you're asking the question of purpose. What is the meaning of life? What is my purpose in life? And who is going to help me to figure it out? All right, I'm going to give you some scripture passage quickly, and I want you to read them for me. And then, Mr. Eddie, what time should I be finishing? 7:30?
7:40.
7:40. All right, so I have about another 20 minutes. So we're going to really make this fast, right? Fine. I'm going to throw out the passages, and you're going to find them as quickly as you can and read them because I want to point some things out to you quickly and then close up. All right. And I have a little illustration that we're going to end with. All right. So Psalm 127 verse 1. Psalm 127 verse 1. Just find them in your Bibles and read them for me on your phone. Somebody actually put in their hands so we wouldn't duplicate. Everybody wouldn't find the same thing at the same time. Who's going to read this first one? Psalm 127. All right, he got that.
Psalm 1.
Psalm 127 verse 1. Proverbs 14 verse 34. Proverbs 14 verse 34. All right, right here. Romans 1 verses 26 to 29. Romans 1 verses 26 to 29. Okay, you got that. Acts 2 verse 44. All right, you got that. Romans 10, 14 to 15. Romans 10 verses 14 to 15. All right, he has that. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11. Okay. Acts 8 verses, this one is a bit long. Let me skip that for now. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4. And then Acts 8 verse 4 to verse 25. I'm going to end with that because there's an illustration I want to end with, and all of you are going to help me with the illustration. So Acts 4 from verse 4 to 25. It's a story. So you got that. All right. Okay, let's go quickly. Here's what I'm going to do. I give you a lot of passages. You're going to read it for me, and I'm going to walk you through a process to make the connection to what we're really saying about the question. All right. So who's the first one? Psalm 127 verse 1.
Except the Lord build the house, the laboring vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain.
Except the Lord build the house, the labor is in vain. Except the Lord watching the city, the watchman watching vain. In other words, the police and the army and all that sort of thing, that's not really the best thing, the greatest thing, the most important thing that keeps a place safe. It is what is in people's hearts. So he says you could have the greatest army, best police service in town, but if people are wicked and if God just forsake this nation or the city, everything will just run amok because people wouldn't care. and they wouldn't care if they get killed by the police. So you see, you're going to see two things in these passages. One is the role of God, and then when you see the role of God, you understand the role of the, help me out, what the three things are?
Institution, strategy, and system.
And system. You'll see the relevance of the church through those windows. All right. Proverbs 14:34. Who has that one? That's the second one. Proverbs 14:34. Huh? You got that? Ready? Go ahead. Proverbs 14:34. You ready? Got it? All right. Go ahead.
Godliness makes a nation great, but sin is a disgrace to many people.
You see why the church is important. So watch this. If the church becomes corrupt, the whole nation is going to be corrupt. If the church falls asleep, the nation doesn't have anybody to say, hey, what you doing? Come on, man. We can't have this wickedness going on. So the church, godliness makes a nation great. Sin destroys a nation. And what is sin? Sin is anything that dishonors God. You see? So I'm answering, I did two things. I wanted to see I've done two things already. I've raised the question and answered it in a general way, and then I'm letting the scriptures help me to answer the question, so you know that the answer you're looking for is actually divine. All right. Third one, Romans 1:26-29. Go ahead.
Because of this, God gave them over to the shameful lust. Even then, their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not to be done. That's a weird sentence. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips.
All right. This is one of those passages you don't hear much about anymore. You know, people don't even know it's in the Bible, because it is a hot button topic in the times in which we live now. Because it's a verse in the Bible that is probably the verse in the Bible that most directly addresses the issue of homosexuality. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. And that's not even the reason why I really gave you that passage. The reason I gave you the passage is that I want you to see that God wants nations to prosper and to do well. But if nations don't want God, then God said, all right, do what you want. So you'll find that a nation would implode. A nation could just destroy itself. God, we don't want Sodom and Gomorrah. So you see, we could discuss homosexuality as a separate issue, which we're not doing tonight. But the point is that if you decide that you don't want God in your business, God, we don't want you in the nation, we don't want you in our lives personally, then, and it's kind of a strange way to see God, right? Can you just see God say, really? All right, fine. Hey, do what you want. Just go ahead. Knock yourself out. Be my guest. And then you just make a total mess of your life and a total mess of the nation. So, what's the purpose of the church? The church is to say, hey, let's understand what God wants for a nation and help the nation to be its best self. That's the point. Let's help the nation to be its best self. If not, God would say, do what you want. Just go ahead. Kill each other. I mean, do whatever is pleasing to you. So that's the point there that I want you to get. Acts 2 verse 44. Huh? Verse 44. Acts 2 verse 44.
All the believers were together and had everything in common.
That's all it says, right? See, that's all it says. All the believers were together and they had everything in common. So as a divine strategy, as a divine institution, as a divine system, the church really and truly is supposed to be a place and an institution that multiplies your gifts. the church is supposed to multiply your gifts. So coming out of the church, you're supposed to have beauty parlors, you're supposed to have restaurants, you're supposed to have car services, cleaning services, schools. That's why, if you notice, if you were to go back in history, you would see that years ago, the church used to have schools, hospitals. In fact, if you notice, even right here in Belize, you will see that there are some schools that still have a church name. So you have Guadalupe. Most, you see, all right. End of argument. He just said most. Huh?
St. Joseph, St. John,
Most.
St. Catherine,
There
St.
you go. And that is again, you see how it comes back to the heart of your question this evening. Your question is the church relevant? Because behind that question, something tells you there was a time when the church was relevant. And the relevance of the church wasn't just telling you, well, be yourself, be good, be a good girl, love God, live righteously, get ready and wait for heaven. No. There was a time when the church was telling you and doing more than that. There was a time when the church was saying, you need to develop your mind. So you need schools. You need to be cared for. You need hospitals. Oh, we're in a world where money is important. We need credit unions and banks. You see? So the believers were together and they had all things in common because they understood that was a strategy. And that if they put the system together, they could become an institution that could change the world. It's all making sense, right? See, he's loving all of this stuff. Romans 10, 4 to 14 and 15. Who was that? All right, go. Romans 10, 14 and 15.
How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things.
So the church is supposed to carry a message to the nation. And the question that the writer Paul is raising is, how would people know what they're supposed to do? And how would they hear about what God wants for a nation or for a territory if nobody is saying it? And how could somebody say it if they're not sent? So how are you going to hear if nobody's telling you? And how somebody's going to tell you if they're not going? And how could they go if somebody doesn't send them? So he said, God calls, so some of you right in this room here tonight, God called you to be preachers and evangelists and all kind of great things to bring people into knowledge and awareness of themselves. But the Bible says, how people will hear if you don't go? And then how you will go if God don't send you, but when God sends you, you have to answer. You see? All right, we're going down fast. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11, and we have two more and we'll be finished.
God has chosen a good time for all things to happen. He has caused people to think about things that will continue forever, but nobody can completely understand everything that God has done from the beginning of your lives to the end.
Nobody could fully understand what God has done from the beginning of their life to the end. God has chosen a time for everything. And God has put inside of you this desire for things that will last forever. The old King James Version, in this beautiful poetic language, says, God has placed eternity in the heart of man. That is why there are certain things that we are constantly trying to do. Because God has put eternity inside. Just read it again, the first part of it.
God has chosen a good time for all things to happen.
And then go on. Tell you when to stop.
God has caused people to think about things that will continue forever.
God has caused people to think about things that will continue forever. So watch this. Why do you think people spend so much time in the gym?
Because they can't rock their heart. You can start that way.
I'm a bit too far.
That's a good answer, and that answer is actually related to the answer. I mean, he said because the girl break your heart. Very interesting answer from a young man. That's why you go to the gym. Girl break my heart. Never work. No. But that answer is in line with the answer that I have in mind. The answer I have in mind is that people want to be healthy so they could live a longer time. So if your heart is broken, that could actually kill you, So you go to the gym so that you could Dodge the bullet, you know. So we go to the gym, and then what? You dress up yourselves. I mean, we have ladies in the room. Look at the ladies, you know, their makeup and their hairdo and this, that. Why? Because you want to look beautiful and then stay young forever. So even the oldest granny, you see how her face fixed up and her hair fixed up and so on. Because we want to preserve those things. You know, so we want to, God put eternity into us. And the church is supposed to tell us, hey, understand what this thing is. And understand that when you connect with God, there is an eternity that comes to you that lasts after this body leaves. Because the Spirit of God is inside of us. So when the body leaves or dies, we say it dies. When the body stops functioning, you don't stop functioning. Because your body is only the instrument that is used to carry you. So when you say, you know, I was just thinking to myself, really? You were thinking to yourself? Well, who was thinking to who? I was thinking to myself. That's not two of you. So who's I? And who's myself? You see, all of us understand that there is something to us that is more than just a body. That's why we function the way we function. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 4. Who has that one? I think somewhere here. All right, good.
In whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not.
There is that.
Bless the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine upon them.
So God has this idea that human beings must understand God, and this understanding must give you a level of enlightenment and awareness about yourself, about the world, about how the world functions, about what you're supposed to do. God has this thing in mind that, man, I want them to see really who I am, and when they see who I am, there's a light that will go on in their minds. And now they want to be like me, and they want to change the world for the good. But the Bible says there is a God of this world. Who do you think that's referring to? There's a devil. There's a real devil. There's a being that works contrary to God. And the Bible says this God of the world has blinded the minds of people who don't believe so that they can't believe. So when you see people acting crazy and mad and they say they're atheists and all these kind of things, it is not, they don't even know. They really and truly honestly don't know why they feel that way. Because the Bible says that their minds are blinded so they can't come into the understanding of the truth. That's why if the church is not dealing with those issues, then you see how you could say the church is irrelevant. Because it is not dealing with the issues that could bring the light to you and remove the veil. Yes, sir.
Speaking of the devil, from your knowledge of what you know about Samael and Israel, would you view him as the pure evil or the punisher of evil?
Who is that?
Lucifer, the devil, Samael.
If he's I get you.
Do you think he's like evil itself and just the one who puts evil into the world, or the person who punishes evil?
I would say it's the person who understands that in us there is a natural desire for evil. So he encourages you and he pushes you and stirs it up in you and makes it exciting for you. Do you know why I say that? Because the Bible says that everyone, come help me out here. We're going to play a little game quickly, but you're going to keep moving, right? You know, you're going to face me. Yes, and we're going to play a little game. We're just going to play a little game. Just going to play a little game, but you're going to move. You move, you keep moving, just move. Move. You see, now, what about that? So I have to what? Huh? I have to follow him. Huh? Does that make sense? Because I want to keep up with him and he's drawing me. So I have to follow him. So the Bible says that we are drawn away and we are enticed by our own lust. So there is something inside of you that is drawing you. So when the devil comes and the devil says, hey, let's play, and the devil keeps moving, you're having a good time. Keep moving, brother, keep moving. See? The devil is you're having a good time, and you don't even realize, by the time you realize what's going on, the devil already have you where he wants to have you so he could destroy you. But you see, it starts off, the Bible says, the lust of we have something, a lust, a desire inside of us, and that drives us. So the devil just come along and say, oh, come on, man, let's have a good time. You see? And the Bible says when the lust is conceived, it brings sin. And sin grows and it brings death. And death is not always in the physical. Sometimes your ambition dies, your dreams die, your relationships die. Death comes into your life because the devil brings something that, oh, come on, man, come on, have a good time. You know, and then you die. Thank you.
Temptation is evil.
Aha! You see, he's on to it. Now, I have a longer passage, but I want somebody to come and help me out. 2 people to come and help me out. I'm wrapping up now, right? I'm ending. These are scabs, and they're clean. Can you help him tie this around his eyes so he can't see? I need somebody else. All right. Woo! Help me. Tie this around his eyes. All right. So let's see. You come. I haven't used you yet. You come. So, help him to the back. Lead him to the back. You're going to lead him to the back. All right. Stay right there. All right. Thank you. All right. Lead him to the back and just leave him there for a minute. Aha. All right. Now, here's what we're going to do. I need all of you to help me. You're going to give him instructions, and you're going to give him instructions. I want you to tell him how to get to the back, and I want you to tell him how to get to the front. I'm already going to no other information I'm giving you, no other instruction I'm giving you. Give him instruction for how to get to the back, and give him to get to the front. All right, forward. Forward. I'm already. Forward.
Run straight.
Mario, good. Going. Yes. Left. Yeah.
Only to see one right.
Thank you, Gentlemen.
I think he's ready.
I hope I have a lot of fun just watching this happen. Just watching this happen. Just so much fun. And thank you. You all did an awesome job. A really good job. A good job at showing what I intended for this exercise to do. Yes. I want you to see how easy it is to have chaos in the world, how easy it is to have chaos in your life, and how easy it is for the chaos to be multiplied when you have a lot of voices talking in your head at the same time. And I'm going to end by saying that is really the purpose and the relevance. No, let me say it differently. So I get it right. Let me start by saying not that, but say the purpose and the relevance of the church is to be able to give the direction clearly and accurately so that people could advance to where they are supposed to get to without crashing all over the place and messing up their lives. So if the church messes up people's lives, the church failed in that. And has it been doing that? Of course, to some extent, unfortunately. Yes, question time. I'm finished. I know I have a last passage, but I'll kind of skip that. Maybe next time, there's a next time.
Going back to the game of how so many people were helping because of that it caused chaos, so they didn't really know where to go with that. Wouldn't that also then